America, you don't give a damn about the Sixers. And neither do we.
The Sixers, they haven't won since 5 days before the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
Told that Embiid is scheduled to have tests imaging done on his knee early this week. And at that point, both sides will collaborate with specialists on
this season is a joke. Nobody gives a damn about the Sixers because we know they're not healthy.
There is a shocking rumor swirling around the NBA. Joel Embiid might shut down the rest of his season and go through surgery. This is more than just an injury update. It pulls back the curtain on some wild twists in Philadelphia. Twists involving an uncertain future, odd front office moves, and a star player who might be more complicated than many realize. Some comments from the Sixers organization still suggest there's hope for a playoff run, but a closer look reveals a different story. It's a story about a battered roster, a ticking clock on Embiid's health, and an unsettling draft pick situation that could haunt the team for years. Daryl Morey recently made it sound like the Sixers still have a real chance to do something special.
He's not moving nearly as well as he was, and we're hoping maybe some conditioning, rhythm, that kind of stuff.
That statement raised eyebrows. The team isn't even comfortably in the playoff picture, and everyone around the league can see the problems piling up. On the other hand, insiders like Shams Charania have hinted that Embiid may need surgery sooner rather than later. The question becomes, why is anyone talking about a potential postseason miracle when the star player might be done for the year? Plenty of fans notice that Embiid has been struggling on the court. There have been times when he looks slower than usual, gets beat down the floor by younger, hungrier opponents, and even loses his spot in crunch time. Some might wonder if this is just about injuries or if there's a bigger issue brewing behind the scenes. Now for the center of the story, Joel Embiid. The big man went from an MVP-level player last year to someone who looks alarmingly ordinary on certain nights. Not too long ago, coaches and teammates were praising Embiid's scoring and interior defense. He could draw fouls at will, drain mid-range jumpers, and block shots in the paint. Lately, that dominance isn't on display. A look back at last season reveals a moment where Embiid hurt his meniscus. The team, chasing postseason success, chose to bring him back earlier than many doctors advised. Right after that, Embiid played internationally, which likely kept him from getting a full summer to rest. All of that raises red flags about the long-term care of one of the league's most valuable players. Medical experts from the Philadelphia area have weighed in, suggesting that if Embiid needs more extensive surgery, the timeline for recovery could be around a year. That's a serious amount of time for any athlete, especially one with a history of injuries. Losing Embiid for most or all of next season would be a disaster. It could also create tension in the locker room and front office. Why wasn't this handled more carefully? Did chasing short-term goals cost this team a shot at a stable future? Those questions lead to a deeper issue. Embiid's not the type of guy who wins sympathy easily. It's not just the fact that he's injury-prone. The rumor mill says there's a side to Embiid's personality that rubs people the wrong way. Embiid used to be a fan favorite. He joked around on social media, smiled for cameras, and brought a playful energy to the team. At first, that made him popular, especially during the early days of the process. But in the last year or so, fans have begun to turn on him. Some of that might be about on-court struggles, but there's also talk about how he carries himself behind closed doors. As all of this unfolds, another big name has also taken hits from fans. Paul George, also known as Podcast P, has found himself facing harsh criticism. But his story might shine a light on how different players handle judgment in the modern league. Paul George has been around the league for a while. He's respected by plenty of players, especially for his two-way skills and ability to get hot on offense. Younger players used to name him as a top inspiration, and even some stars have said that if they could design an NBA player from scratch, it would look like Paul George. Lately, though, he's been seen as a letdown on the court, not matching up to his massive contract. Another gripe involves his podcast, which has many fans rolling their eyes. Whenever George goes through a cold streak or the team loses, people are quick to mock his time spent talking online instead of focusing on the game. The same complaints would probably arise for any star player who starts a side gig. Once the production dips, the side ventures become an easy target. Why bring this up in a conversation about Embiid? Because it shows that players who get hit with the injury-prone label can face a harsh backlash, even if they're just doing what any athlete would do. George might deal with over-the-top criticism at times, but it pales in comparison to the looming crisis in Philadelphia. The Embiid situation involves draft picks, a disenchanted fan base, and a star who might be out for an entire year if surgery happens. George's story just illustrates the general appetite for drama around star players who fail to deliver when it counts. Philadelphia's front office, however, is dealing with a bigger problem than fans criticizing a podcast. The team has to figure out whether to chase a late playoff spot or embrace a strategic collapse. Few franchises have a history like Philadelphia's when it comes to tanking. The process was a prolonged effort to collect talent by losing in the short term. Embiid was one of the main prizes from those rough years. Now, the team faces a new form of that same dilemma. Is it worth limping to an 8th seed or a play-in game, only to get bounced and lose a valuable pick? If the Sixers quietly accept that this season is lost, they might keep a top 6 selection in 2025. That pick could lead to a future star who pairs nicely with Embiid, or replaces him if his injuries get worse. It might also make Tyrese Maxey's path clearer. Maxey is already considered a bright young talent, and adding another high-upside player could open a new era of Sixers basketball. Still, there's a voice in the back of some fans' minds saying the team owes it to the city to put up a fight. Philadelphia has one of the more passionate fan bases in sports. Waving the white flag before the playoffs is risky from a marketing standpoint. The front office might feel pressure to say all the right things about still having a shot. But the scoreboard doesn't lie. This season has shown major cracks in the roster, and the biggest crack might be in Embiid's knee. At some point, the harsh reality sets in. It might be smarter to shut Embiid down, aim for the best draft position possible, and rebuild from there. The question becomes whether anyone in management or coaching is willing to admit that in public. If not, fans could feel misled, and the backlash will get even worse. Right now, it looks like the team is choosing to keep people in the dark, releasing vague statements and letting the rumor mill spin. That approach won't last forever, though. The truth tends to come out when the season ends, and off-season moves begin. By then, it might be too late to salvage that draft pick or plan for a future without Embiid at full strength. The biggest worry is that Embiid's surgery and recovery will take around a year. That would mean he misses the rest of this season, and a large chunk of next season, if not all of it. Spending 2 seasons in limbo is a disaster for any franchise, especially one that traded away multiple future assets to stay competitive now. If the team has no choice but to come clean, fans will look back and wonder why so many risk factors were ignored. Yet the rumors keep growing louder. There's a chance Embiid chooses surgery soon, and then it all unravels. A player of his caliber can change the league's balance of power. If he's off the court for a year, the entire Eastern Conference dynamic shifts. Boston, Milwaukee, and Cleveland would solidify their positions at the top. The Sixers would become an afterthought unless a young player emerges or a lucky draft pick pays off big time. The whispers about Joel Embiid shutting down the season might just be the tip of a giant iceberg. Beneath that possibility is a perfect storm of controversy, including conflicting statements from the front office, a valuable draft pick that could slip away, a frustrated fan base, and a star player who seems more focused on himself than on team goals. None of this would sting quite as badly if the Sixers were cruising at the top of the standings. But they aren't. They're under .500, fighting for a play-in spot, and stuck in a tough conference. Philadelphia's future hinges on this decision. Embiid's injury concerns won't disappear without serious intervention. The front office can't just pretend everything will be fine if it's not, and fans know what a rebuild looks like because they lived through the process. The difference now is that the stakes are even higher because the margin for error is slim. One misstep could launch the Sixers back to another long era of disappointment. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss our next upload.